Hello, everybody. This is the Creativity Show. I'm Claire Cooley. I'm so glad you're here. We're sharing the joy of creating the healing, life-enhancing attributes of creativity, hoping that some of the stuff I show you will inspire you to get a stronger connection to your own imagination, your confidence to express it creatively, and your courage to share it. That's what I'm doing, is finding the courage to share my creativity. I've been doing a lot of stenciling because it's a great way to grow our confidence. Today I'm going to show, because someone asked me to, they want to make a drawing a loved one gave them into a stencil. So I'm going to show a drawing turned into a stencil design, turned into a stencil, turned into art to wear on on this silk dress. So today I'm wearing something I just stenciled, which Bodhi has some close-ups of, because I've done all 18 flowers are going to be out very soon. We're at what number, Bo, did you say? 15. So here is this outfit I'm wearing right now that has the warbler and wildflower. Do you have the name of this particular piece of art close? It's okay if you don't.
I don't. If you step to the side, we can see you behind the photo.
Oh, wrong way. Here we are. So here's the warbler and the wildflower. There's some on the back. And the drawing that this well, here we are.
I'll show a close-up.
Okay, you're showing a close-up of the drawing. Great. And then that turned into, do we have a close-up of the stencils that
I am finding it. I think so. There you go.
So there's the stencils, and then that's this is an example of using it to create some elegant art to wear. I also did a t-shirt, some very functional art to wear with these same stencils, but that's upstairs right now, so maybe we'll show that on Thursday. But today we're going to work on some from the pollinator series. I did 7 drawings from of pollinators, and one of them was selected for Pheasants Forever's Pollinator Print of the Year, and they have turned into stencils that I'm starting to make fashionable examples of them on clothing. So that's what I'm going to work on today, is this ladybug, and I think that's a coneflower pollinator insect. And so you're going to see me live painting it onto this silver silk dress. And there's also, I'm going to walk over here and see if I can reach that. I have to wait till Bodhi comes out. It's too tall. And I've got some other pollinators that I did on the tall shirt. So when he comes out, we'll show you that. But like usual, like we've been doing recently, there will be the pre-recorded audio of me reading my stories from my memoir, Incandescence, and they'll play while I'm painting. So we're going to start that in a moment. Are you ready to come out so you could reach this tall silver shirt?
Sure.
And There's Bodhi. Hi to Bodhi.
Yeah, do you want me to show these 3 pictures while you talk a bit about the process?
Sure. Do we have this too?
Yes.
Let's show that. Whichever's first.
So let me show the art that you made that from.
Yes, there's a pollinator, hummingbird, and that is what's gone on to this silk shirt. Do we have? There's the stencil, and
you want to see the video in process?
Sure, that's perfect. So here's me. First I did silver, and that didn't pop. Art is a process. Life is a process. So I try to start light. So the silver is lovely and subtle, but it didn't pop for me. So then I tried some white, and it looked very ghostly. So I thought, well, let's try gold. And then when I tried the gold, I went, you know what? Let's just go for color. Instead of stencil design, I often do in one color. So there's me painting in colors, which I'm going to do on this silk dress that goes with this silk jacket shirt. And so do we have, well, I can show it.
This video has 24 seconds left.
Okay, while that's going, is this camera over the desk? The painting table, is it on yet?
It's on, but it's not recording.
Okay, so when we're done with this little video of me painting this, I'll put the finished on the table here for us to see. Yes, can we show this first though? That's should I get it closer? Is that working?
Yes. Do you need me to get the laptop closer to you so you can see?
That would be better when you come out. But meanwhile, you can show the other video that we've already got ready.
Okay, I'm loading that up now. All right, it's going.
Careful, you got a cord around your leg there of the tripod.
It's on.
Okay.
Can you see that?
Yes. Much better.
Okay, I'll start recording the overhead camera now.
Sure. Then
All set.
and then I'm just going to talk just another moment before we start the story, and then I'll start painting.
Great.
When that's done, let me know. Okay, great. So now, before we start the story, let me just show you. Yes, I heard the Tibetan bell.
Joni on YouTube said, wow, the hummingbird on the clothing is so beautiful. And then we also got a comment on Facebook.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I was thinking this morning, my cousin here in Duluth said, "You like getting dressed up?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I do." I can remember growing up, we were so poor, and my little sister and I always and still do shop in used stores, as I say often over and over. Almost everything in my wardrobe was either given to me, a hand-me-down, donated, or it was purchased from a used store. I literally have one thing from a fancy department store. When my first book was published, the Book of Cranes, I celebrated by buying myself something from a department store. But I don't really need to spend money that way to feel good about myself. I prefer treasure hunting in used stores and finding something and putting outfits together like this. They were all purchased at different times, but one of the things that is a strength I have is remembering colors and what would go with what, so I can find the skirt one year and the jacket another year. Yes.
Sue Spencer on YouTube said, "Hello, Claire. Nice meditation music while you're painting your stencil. Fun to see the live action."
Lovely. Thank you. I'm so glad you're here, Sue. It really makes me happy when I know you're here, as well as Joni and all of you. It does feel like a virtual visit. I do feel you, and I feel connected to you, which is happy making. So back to the little story before I get into the painting and the audio stories. So my little sister and I would find things in a used store that were really cheap because they were so out of style, nobody else would want them. But sometimes they were beautiful, elegant old dresses, and we put them on and get all dressed up, and then we go down to the beach and build a bonfire. No, we couldn't afford cover charges for clubs or eating out or any. So I've always enjoyed expressing my creativity through dressing. And often I wear the color I need to wear. But for these live streams, I've been showing a different outfit that Sue donated a dress from a used store she found, and I did warblers, gold warblers and wildflowers on it. So I love showing what we can do that's fun and fast and frugal, fashion, fine art. So let's show you this, and then we'll get into the painting. So here's the drawing of the ladybug and gray-headed coneflower. And then here is the drawing that for the stencil. Now, the two things you need to know about turning a drawing, a piece of art, a design into a stencil is, one, simplify. Because the stencil is going to cut out shapes. So simplify and separate. So here's the stencil that was cut from this design that was inspired by this drawing. Now here it is painted on this silk dress that I'm going to continue doing some coloring of while the story's going. Is there anything else I need to respond to before we get into the story?
No, but I know you wanted to cover that process, so I put a link to one of your tutorials.
Yes, Peggy, who asked, need to help her turn her departed grandson's drawing into a stencil. Bodhi put a link to the simplest tutorial video simplest way you can do a stencil. I literally went out in the backyard and collected some leaves, traced them, cut them on stiff paper like cardstock with scissors. Use them for stencils. Can't really get much easier than that, simpler. The next level, which we also have videos on the Creativity Show that show next level up from cardstock scissors, would be razor blade and mylar or acetate. Plastic could last forever if you take care of it. And then there's also hot knife. When I cut peace in 42 different languages to do a project with at-risk youth, I used a hot knife. And then I decided with 300 stencil designs, get a Cricut cutter. So Bodhi will also highlight that video of using the different ways you can do stencils, from simplest to the fancy Cricut cutter. There's also other kinds of Cricut cutters, or other kinds of stencil cutters, other brands. And the links are in the description. And the other thing I just thought of is Joni sent me a beautiful picture of a cake she decorated with my calla lily stencil. It's just beautiful. It looks so delicious and lovely. Thank you, Joni, so much for sending that and having that idea. Yes.
I could, if you give me your phone, I could put that picture on the stream. But you also got a comment from Sumner on Facebook saying, "Love the stories, Sue's suggested outfit, the fabulous art, and your super califragilisticexpialidocious audiobook."
Thank you, thank you, thank you for all that. Really, really appreciate it. Yeah, we're going to share some more stories today. The pre-recorded audio version. The book is here. We self-published this book. My first book was published by Pomegranate, but the big publishers wanted to publish my stories and separate my art into a coffee table book, but I felt very strongly that they belong together because art is that the serenity of creative reverie is a main way I rose above my challenges. So Incandescence, rising above darkness. I wanted to share how, not just the tough stuff I've gone through, but how I got through it. So the art, there's 68 pieces of art in the book, and the audiobook is going to come out pretty soon. We have an ebook and a print version, color and black and white, available, and the audiobook will be out soon. But meanwhile, we're going to continue sharing stories while I paint in front of you, which I actually really look forward to, because stepping into the moment and creative expression is always so happy making. It's a really joyous and peaceful place. So I love that, and hearing my own stories again after taking this big break from writing them and recording them is also giving me a more objective view of myself and my life, and it's always healing, and it makes me feel really good that people suggested I write my stories, so many of them that I finally did, and that they have helped people is great sense of fulfillment. So I hope you find the confidence to share what you alone have, what you've been through, what you've learned, what you've risen above, what your experiences have taught you. I hope you share that with others. It makes the world a richer place. So my phone is out here if you need it when we start the story. Oh, you got it already? Oh, okay. So we'll show Joni's cake picture after a story or two. So give Bodhi a chance to find it. So there you go. Thank you. Heavenly souvenir on the vacation to hell. My father was drawn to places no one else wanted to go. There were good reasons. Quicksand, thick thorn bushes, wild boars, water. My father dramatic, he was not interested. Vacation on the salt flats that almost swallowed our car in the night. Then there was the time he drove us down to the beach where the high tide line was 30 feet higher than our vehicle. There were many places where we kids had to dig the vehicle out of mud or sand while my father drank beer and barked orders. There were the rare times my father, for some inexplicable reason, chose a campground. They were the safest trips, but still terrible because of his need to be the center of attention at all times. He commanded this attention through different means: his sharp wit, commanding charm, or the public humiliation of his children. It did not matter to him how he got it. In campgrounds, he would perform for the other campers by yelling in a voice no one could ignore, "Okay, kids, line up 3 times." This translated into the 4 of us standing shoulder to shoulder in descending order and repeating 3 times, patience, love, and understanding. If we did not say it loud enough for everyone in the campground to hear, he would have us do it over again. This display would satisfy my father's need to stand out for a short time, and it would cause me to hide from the other campers in embarrassment. I preferred the peril of wild adventures to that humiliating display. My task was fire maker, which was the best part of any trip. While out gathering wood, I could enjoy nature and quiet. Bringing light and warmth to the camp was a protection from my father's darkness. I would go in ever-widening circles, observing the land and its creatures, getting all the companionship I needed from the tiny, silent beings. The distant stars and the endless expanse made all my troubles feel minuscule. I cherished the calm. As I filled my arms with wood, my heart filled with the serenity of the wild places. I wrapped the natural world around me like a warm blanket. The stillness became my shield. Part of my father respected me for finding a way to keep out of the reach of his pain. Part of him resented me for the invisible distance I put between us. We all lived at the foot of the volcano that was my father, never knowing when his rage would erupt and incinerate everything in its path. He survived on chaos while I thrived on peace. I accepted our differences and that we may never truly understand each other. He did not know how I thought. I did not know what he felt. My love for him did not depend on comprehending him. He was my father. My love for him occurred naturally. It simply existed past all the pain he was in and the anguish he passed on to others. Years later, my brother decided to organize the only trip since our childhood on Father's Day weekend. He said our father would be joining us. When my partner said he would like to come along, I said, "Before you decide, I need to tell you how I survived my childhood, How? He asked. I assumed that if my father had anything to do with it, it might be hellish. That way, if it was hell, I was prepared, and if it wasn't, I was pleasantly surprised. That's harsh, he said. Why do you want to go? Because I have a strong feeling this may be the last time I see my father. He decided to come along, and so did my nephews, who were living with me. My older nephew brought his 4-year-old daughter. By the time we met my brother at the campground he had selected, it was 104 degrees. He said he chose it because he had not been there before. There was a lake, but no wading or swimming was allowed. The water glistened in the distance, tormenting us. There was also a pool, but it was closed for repairs. The campground had no trees big enough to provide any shade. It was strictly forbidden to tie anything to the only trees to create some shade, and no one was allowed to sleep on the lawn, the only bit of softness. By Saturday evening, the campground was so crowded it was like sleeping on a freeway median. Still, my father had not shown up, and it was clear to me that he wasn't going to. But my brother did not want to leave because the campground fee was non-refundable. I knew he was also holding hope that our father would show up. With great effort, we talked my brother into leaving a few hours early on Sunday. Trying to redeem a bad experience, my brother suggested we go to visit a nearby ghost town. When we got there, the kids went into the Wild West Museum, and my brother and I walked around outside. When it was time for me to get the car, he said, "You should go see the little shops in that barn. I know you'll see something like." I saw a garnet necklace set endowed with calming properties, restores. It is said that garnets extract negativity and transmute it to a beneficial state and are used in the breastplate of the high priestess. They say it is helpful in moods of abandonment. I thought as soon as I saw them that they were a gift for someone, but I could not figure out for whom. But I felt it so strongly that I bought them. I knew the right recipient would come to mind. I showed the necklace and earrings to my brother and said, "If Dad knew me, this is what he would give me." Then we parted ways. A few miles down the road, my Aunt Jane called to say, "Your father died last night. He was shot." Everyone in the van was still and silent, waiting for my reaction. I picked up the little brown bag that held the necklace and earrings still sitting on my lap. I carefully unwrapped the earrings from their tissue paper, straightened out the wires, and laid them on the empty bag. Then I took out the necklace and slowly balanced the tear-shaped rose quartz pendant in the very center of the dainty silver chain. I held up the necklace and earrings where everyone could see the milky pink rose quartz and the tiny garnet glistening in the sunlight. After opening the clasp, I moved my hair out of the way, put them on thinking, this is a heavenly souvenir from the vacation to hell. I said so everyone could hear, "Thanks, Dad. It is the perfect gift." Okay. Well, that's a story that it's hard to believe sometimes that we can heal such painful events in our lives and feel peace. And I don't feel any anguish. Yes, Tibetan bell time.
MMM on YouTube said powerful story. And Michael B said, great story.
Thank you, both of you. I really appreciate it. I chose young in life to try to find good in everything. And the good of going through difficult stuff is it does make us stronger. And the good in sharing it with others is it can help them to get through their difficult stuff, which we all have. I heard something recently that the Dalai Lama said, which was something close to, I don't have the exact quote, something close to his disciples he was talking to and said, treat your enemies like jewels. Think of your enemies like jewels because they've taught you enlightenment and given you strength. Yes.
DBC on YouTube said, thanks for putting your positive vibes into the world.
You're very, very welcome. Turning our difficulties into a way to inspire others gives them a higher purpose. There's nothing left to regret when we heal ourselves enough and love ourselves enough and love others to share what could help them. It turns it to something beautiful. And that's what I hope for all of us. All right.
You covered it.
All right, so we'll go on with painting in the next story.
Got it.
Light where darkness had been. By the time I arrived, my father's friends were gathering in a mob, pointing their hurt and anger at my father's girlfriend, who they thought shot him. We do not know what happened yet, I said. Claire, I know you will figure it out, my godmother said. Many throughout my life have thought I could see things others could not. When I was 14, my godmother saw the other kids following me around and knew I preferred solitude, so she asked sweetly, "Are your devotees crowding you, dear?" Even as a child, people came to me thinking I had something to say that could help. I'm still trying to figure out what that is, hoping that trying is enough. So I knew I had to show up and try to find helpful words. Hours after my father died from a shotgun blast to the head, I walked through his house, trying to determine the truth I did not witness. When I opened the curtains in his bedroom where he left this earthly incarnation, I felt a rush of light fill the space where darkness had been. Everything was perfectly neat. My father was found on his bed without a single drop of blood. His house was clean and simple with lots of books. I had a vision of my father separating himself from his own life and all his anguish. In one final courageous, though violent act, he ended his ability to do harm. In my vision, I saw him pull the trigger and lay back on the bed as if going into a final sleep. There was no horror. I felt strongly that he was not angry. He had left nothing to be cleaned up. I felt like he was resigned to end his pain the only way he knew he could not pass it on to anyone else. I believe he figured the family would ask me to go and find out the truth. It appeared that he did not want me to find anything disturbing. He stopped himself from hurting anyone else ever again the night before his girlfriend and her young daughter were planning to move in. I believe my father knew he could not stop himself from molesting her in any other way. I felt his final act was a selfless one. I wish he could have found another way to stop himself. I feel grateful and proud that he ended the pain instead of continuing to pass it on. I felt a certainty that it was suicide, but I wanted confirmation from from outside myself. I walked outside to consult the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes, which said, "In turning back, one is freed of guilt." This reading confirmed what I felt and observed, that he did indeed kill himself. The police investigator came to the same conclusion. I asked the detective, how could there be no blood? The detective answered, "This may be rough to hear. I need to know the truth, and I am okay. Your father knew what he was doing and was very deliberate about it. I guess he did not want you to see anything awful. He used birdshot so it would not exit his skull and closed his mouth around the barrel of the gun, so all the damage stayed inside. He sat on his bed so he would fall backward, and it left no mess. I really appreciate that he left me nothing horrible to find. And it is clear no one else did it because he would not have cooperated, and so there would be evidence. That is our conclusion as well. In a strange way, he was very considerate toward you. Yes, and I'm very proud he ended any possibility he would ever molest another little girl. His girlfriend and her young daughter were to be moving in today. You have a great attitude. That is why you are okay. Thanks. I am sad, but okay. I wrestled for years with sharing my story, as it is so entangled with my father's. I didn't want him to suffer despite how much pain he caused others. But as my father departed, the time to give silence a voice arrived. After my father's suicide, I felt mostly relieved. There had always been a hard, sad place in my heart where the love of my father lived. But now my heart is soft and porous again, with no sadness sticking to it. My father and I did not really know each other. He could not let love in, and I did not feel safe to share my truest tenderness with him. But now this feels insignificantly small, like a moth fluttering around the sun. After the death of Catherine, my father's firstborn, he was shaken to his core. At her memorial, my father said to me, "I have to live with what happened to you for the rest of my life," which was the first time he spoke of setting me up to be raped. I said, "I have waited many years to hear those words. Thank you. I forgive you. Please forgive yourself." He began to weep, which I had never seen before. I held my trembling father, which was an event I did not dare hope for. But my forgiveness was not enough, and his own forgiveness was out of reach. What he had to live with for the rest of his life, he could not tolerate. No one can know the torment anyone else has to endure. It could be that severing his brain's connection to his body was the only way to halt the dark thoughts. Maybe his guilt drove him to choose such a way to stop his anguish. Perhaps his desire to stop the violations he was compelled to commit allowed him the courage to face his fear of death. I believe that by receiving forgiveness, he did not want to have anything else to add to his self-loathing, which helped him find the strength to stop himself from hurting anyone else. After Catherine's memorial, he asked me to take a message to both my younger sisters, apologizing for how he had hurt them. There was so much twisted stuff, and while I don't condone or excuse his hurtful behavior, I have found forgiveness, and I hope everyone can. There is always so much to forgive in any life. I forgive them all. My father for his unhealed wounds, and my older sister for taking on our father's pain and passing it on to her children. There is so much pain in the world. Many just pass on the pain passed to them, but a few courageously face the fear, hurt, and step out of the way of the anger. While he was alive, I separated myself from the bitterness in my father's heart, keeping guard over my tenderness so his pain could not creep in. Now I can relax, as the pain my father carried and did not set down in life was resolved in death. To my father, I am grateful for many things you gave me: respect for nature, appreciation for keeping my mind my own, a sense of adventure, insatiable curiosity, a desire to never stop learning, creative exploration, and wit. You showed me the dark to contrast the light, giving life more depth. I have seen you roar like a lion and tremble like a baby bird fallen from the nest. I will always remember sitting next to a fire listening to you tell stories, and your passionate description of the dragons and tigers you saw in the clouds over our heads. Most of all, I appreciate who you were and that you chose my mother. I know you did the best you could do, and in a final act I see as courage you ended passing on the pain the only way you knew how. Only tenderness and forgiveness remains from me for you. Now you have joined the unimaginable. I will see your magnificent creatures playing in the clouds. I will think of you when I am on an adventure. Only love remains for you, and I hope only peace remains with you. Your loving daughter, Claire. Wow. I don't mind admitting that hearing my own words is comforting, and I started writing so that I had a safe place to be heard in journals before I'd ever read. And I still do that, write whatever I need to say. And by doing that, which any of us can do, we can be our own sacred witness, our own counsel. And hearing these words I wrote these years later, from writing them and from experiencing that and from recording it as an audiobook, is deeply comforting to me. We can be our own champions, and that's what I hope that I'm passing on. That's why I'm doing these. So that one touched me deeply, and yes.
Joni B said, extremely impactful stories.
Thank you, Joni. It helps me heal myself. It helps any of us to be heard. I believe that we need to be heard to be happy, and we need to be heard to heal. And even if it's hearing ourselves by writing and stepping back and reading it later, or a sacred witness, a therapist, a mother, a son, a friend, an uncle, a grandfather, it is another level of healing. And the reward for facing my shyness, my fear of sharing myself, my exposing my vulnerability by putting my stories out there to the world, the reward is it is so deeply gratifying, and it fills me with love and hope and purpose that it helps anyone else. Means none of it. There's no bad residue left. Okay.
Nice. You want to show these cake photos? Total left turn.
Yeah.
All right. So here is Joni's cake stencils.
Isn't that wonderful? That is so fabulous. When we share our creativity, like I'm sharing these stencils, I would not have thought of making them um, as cake decoration. Thank you, Joni, so much for thinking of that. And also, I feel like I need to say, because Joni did some research, good for you, thank you so much, that you want to make sure with food that it's all healthy, edible. So if you cut a stencil with a stencil cutting machine, there could be some non-edible oils. So you want to be careful about that. Maybe you can wash them off. I'm not sure what the research said on that, but you don't want to eat them. And you want to make sure that none of the little pieces of plastic that are cut out of the stencil shapes end up in the food. So if you're going to use it for food decoration, make sure that you don't have anything in it you shouldn't eat. So thank you, Joni, for that. And earlier, Joni shared a stencil rose that she put on her guitar case. I love seeing what you guys do with my stencil designs. It really makes me very, very happy. On Patreon right now, we have 15, did you say?
I did.
15 out of the 18 flowers. The next 3 flowers in the 18 flower series will be out hopefully by Thursday. So Patreon members pay nothing extra for the stencils. If you want one of the stencils, I guess they're $3 or $4.
Depends on if you buy them on your computer or on your mobile phone. If you buy them on your computer through Patreon, they're $3 a pop. But of course, you can just sign up for $5 a month with no commitment and get all of them for free included in that price.
Right. And I'm starting with pollinators and with the Warblers and Wildflower series. There's 26 designs in that series. They'll all be made, they are already stencils, and they'll be added to the Patreon membership. And the pollinators, there's 7 different designs. So I'm just going to keep adding the stencils to the Patreon, so members get them for no extra fee, and others can buy whichever one they want. So, all right. So are we ready for the next story?
It's up to you. It's 12:50, so if you want to start the next one, we can.
What is the next story's title?
One moment. Cranes on the cliffs of Memoir, County Clare.
Yes, let's go for that story, because it's mysterious and uplifting, and after suicide, I think it'd be really nice to go up. And I also want to finish this with drops, dewdrops on the ends of these. So let's hear that story, and
Okay.
then we'll wrap it up.
I'm going to press play and then come out and start recording the overhead camera.
Okay. Cranes on the cliffs of Moher in County Clare. Art is my way to find the good in everything. Creativity is how I process pain. While drawing, writing, designing, dancing, gliding, spinning, I feel free, flying without wings. Instinctively, I knew that creativity could carry me through challenges. Expression of emotion stimulates the immunological system. When I discovered dance therapy was a profession, I felt it was a way I could be of service to the world. catharsis through creative movement, carried me through much adversity. The prospect of guiding others to this gift felt right. To get a dance therapist credential, I would need a degree in dance performance before I could be an apprentice to a dance therapist. Most dancers perform for people, but I wanted to help people to dance for themselves. My inspiration is not how the dance looks, but how it feels. Not watching others express, but expressing ourselves is what offers us the most benefit. I set out to find a school where students could design their own study program. I found Antioch College in San Francisco, where I could write my own degree plan. I fasted in solitude in the woods for 3 days without distractions to write my degree plan so I could find my most authentic curiosity to commit to studying. I called my degree plan The Study of Movement. It was all about expressing feelings through creativity for its intrinsic healing qualities. When I shared my degree plan with my advisors, they said they did not understand it, but they trusted it. I asked them, "How can you trust it if you don't understand it?" They said, "You understand it, and we trust you." So what would you advise me to do, being you are my advisors? They all answered a version of urging me to continue following my instincts. That made me seriously consider whether borrowing money to get a credential validating that I could educate myself made sense. I thought it best to give it some time before deciding. I set myself up in the corner of the warehouse the school was in and did Sumi-E painting exercises, wrote, played my porcelain flute, and danced. I was curious about a class called Guided Imagery in Music. In the class, we were told to lay on the floor with our eyes closed and breathe deeply while listening to music. We each had a partner, and one of us was a guide sitting next to the one lying on the floor. In the first class, I was the guide, and my partner shared she saw her mother as a train, barreling down the tracks and running her over. She was traumatized by what she saw, as were most of the students who shared their experiences. While walking to the next class through downtown San Francisco, I passed by many struggling people who were homeless, addicted, mentally unstable, emotionally wounded, confused, and lost. With each one I passed, a weight increased on my chest. By the time I got to class, it was difficult to breathe or move. I was glad it was my turn to lay on the floor. I heard the teacher talking, but his words were without meaning to me. I couldn't think of anything but all the suffering people I passed on the way to class. I felt immense sadness. Without making any sound, I said, "Help me not turn away from the pain of others, but not be crushed by it." I didn't know what or who I prayed to. I never have had certainty about this, but it does not matter. I trust the mysterious magnificence of the universe, and that is enough. After silently asking the ineffable for help, tears rolled down my cheeks. I felt a sudden, powerful shift. In the moment, I felt my cells separate, allowing more space between every molecule of my being. I could feel the music move the hair on my arms and then pass through my body. I became aware I was not solid. My body did not have a distinct edge, but combined with everything surrounding it, the entire universe. I understood I was connected to and part of everything. The sounds in the room were gone, and I looked down without opening my eyes, and I saw I was dancing barefoot on sharp rocks. As soon as I felt the sensation of pain on the bottom of my feet, I looked down again, and I had bird feet. Weightless on the rocks, I felt no pain. As I moved closer to the edge of the cliff, a warm wind lifted me effortlessly as I opened my large wings. Soaring along the stone edge, I did not flap. The thermals carried me. Tilting my body slightly, I flowed toward or away from the cliff's edge that dropped straight down to the ocean. Waves lapped against the stone cliff with a constant, powerful rhythm. Gliding along the rock edge, I saw a place where there was a small half-circle of stones. A few birds stood around, and one lay motionless. I descended and landed beside 5 birds surrounding one dead bird on a small beach made of pebbles. One of the birds asked me without a sound, "Would you like to go where birds go when they leave their bodies?" "Yes," was my spontaneous silent answer the birds heard. We flew upward, circling as we ascended beyond the rock cliff, rising until there was no more land or sea below and no more sky above. I could not see, hear, or feel anything but serenity and beauty. For the first time during the class, my partner said something. "Where are you?" "I'm in the most beautiful place I've ever been." "What does it look like?" she asked. "I cannot see anything," I answered. "How do you know it's beautiful if you can't see anything?" "It just is," I said to her, and she didn't ask any more questions. When we all shared our experiences, the teacher seemed to like the reports of upsetting and violent stuff the other students gave. After I spoke of my experience, he said, "You experienced false euphoria because you have not gone through the trauma to get there." "How do you know what I've been through?" I responded. He was so upset with me, he left the class to meditate. "I've seen this before. She is trying to take over the class," he said to the other students when he returned. Looking at the other students, I asked, "Does anyone else think I'm trying to take over the class?" No one agreed with the teacher. I left the class and realized school was not my natural way to learn. My path led elsewhere. I dreamt the next night I was hitchhiking east on Skyline Highway, running from south of San Francisco to Santa Cruz. I consulted the I Ching, the ancient Chinese book of changes, and it said, "It furthers one to go to the northeast corner." So I said my goodbyes and asked my stepsister to take me to Alice's restaurant above Woodside, the spot from my dream. While waiting for a ride, I remembered a dream of an older woman who was dancing with the churning sea. I was so excited, thinking it was my turn to dance with the ocean, but she looked at me and pointed over to the sand dunes. I understood it was where I was to dance. Walking up the dune, I did not know what was on the other side until I got to the top and looked out at a marina full of people. Disappointed, I was not to dance with the water, which felt so peaceful. I was supposed to help bring peace to the people who needed it. On my journey, I visited Duluth. At an all-day outdoor party, 9 different people told me I should teach dance. I listened, and soon after, I began my adult evening class that I called A Way to Learn to Dance for Joy. This was only the beginning of teaching a wide range of age groups, as well as at hospitals, rehabilitation centers, and crisis shelters. I stayed for my first fall next to Lake Superior. When the birds migrated in autumn, I missed them terribly, and I went to the library, assigning myself the task of drawing lines that could fly. I wanted to refine each bird to its simplest form, to do it in pen and ink with the fewest lines to portray the essence of the creature. Years later, back in San Francisco, I realized I had to paint cranes, and I didn't question why. When I discovered the International Crane Foundation in Baraboo, Wisconsin, the one place in the world where all 15 species lived, I decided to go. I called the director, and he invited me to visit, which I did in the winter while it was not open to the public. I was allowed to sit within the enclosures and observe the birds. While I was there, someone at a lunch gathering asked the director, "You never let me go in. How come she gets to?" He answered in a matter-of-fact manner, "She is a crane." When I was speaking with the administrator, she asked, "Why cranes, Claire?" Before I could answer, she looked at me over her glasses and said, "Oh, you were one." Those events made me recall asking my mother, "What do I say at exhibitions when people ask me why I paint birds?" My mother answered without hesitation, "That's simple, dear. You are one." I was keenly aware of my weight while wishing I could fly, soar, and glide. I yearned for the perspective birds have high above it all. I returned from the International Crane Foundation with 600 pages of written information on cranes. I decided to open the pages to a random place, hoping it would help me understand my mysterious connection to the cranes. I closed my eyes and opened to the middle of the pages, putting my finger on a particular spot. Opening my eyes, I read, "The only place in all of Ireland or Scotland where the bones of cranes have been found is in County Clare and County Sligo." Until that moment, I had not thought about what sort of bird I had shape-shifted into during my experience in San Francisco many years earlier. After my visit to the cranes while standing in my boyfriend's kitchen, I saw a square tea can with photos of Ireland on each side. It was the first time I saw the place I flew over at 18 years old. I walked over to the counter and picked up the tea can, and in small print at the bottom was written, "Cliffs of Moher, County Clare." About 10 years later, my dear friend Jonathan Rice, who I thought of as my spiritual father, invited me on a wild cruise along the west coast of Ireland. The Cliffs of Moher were one of the stops where we got into Zodiac boats to go close to the rugged coast. As I was getting into the boat, the second officer shouted down from the pilot house, "Tie a rope around her so she doesn't fly away." When we got close to the rock cliff, I recognized the tiny half-circle, small stone-covered beach where I met the birds back in San Francisco. When we got back to the boat, a woman came up to me and said, "You must read this." She was pointing to a particular spot in the middle of a book about the Celts. It said, "The ancient Celts, like the American Indian, could transmogrify, shapeshift, to become the spirit of another creature." Reading this, I went into a soft shock and was not able to ask her why she showed this to me. I barely managed to thank her as I stumbled away in a daze. I have no explanation for this. Trying to explain it rationally every time, I am left with greater unknowns than the minuscule aspects I can comprehend. Sometimes I wonder if we carried the DNA of our human ancestors, then why would we not carry the DNA of our pre-human ancestors? Perhaps that afternoon in San Francisco, my heart was so opened by all the suffering I witnessed, I connected with my crane ancestors. Could it be we are connected to everything, but only when we are wide open to notice what normally goes unnoticed? Perhaps when we are still and our loud minds are silent, can we contemplate the natural state of the universe where everything is interwoven? Only when we need not understand can we accept what we cannot explain. There are rare moments when the structures we put on our lives fall away, and what remains is what is actually real. The mysterious complexity is what is authentic, and the overly simplified limitations we put on time, space, consciousness, and existence are the illusion. What I feel confident of is what we can know is insignificant compared to what we cannot. Becoming comfortable with the mystery can lead us through to amazing awareness. Thinking we can know the ineffable is an ultimate demonstration of human hubris. The only thing we can know with certainty is mysteries in this unimaginably expansive universe will continue to unfold as long as we continue to explore. I accept our unknowns will also remain elusive. I am grateful whether or not I ever know how I am connected to the cranes or the cliffs of Moher in County Clare. Wow, that was really sweet and poignant, and I want to say that all these years later, it's as mysterious now as it was then, but I have no less comfort and certainty that it took place, and no more explanation how or why. But I'm glad it happened, and I'm glad that I was present for it, and I'm glad to share it. Yes.
MMM on YouTube. What an adorable ladybug. Love your work.
Thank you. It was very, very sweet it was a beautiful duality of life to be doing this delicate ladybug and pollinator, and hearing the heavy stories about my father and the mysterious story about becoming a crane. So my connection to the cranes. Yeah. So life is an adventure, and I hope you're enjoying the spiritual synchronicity you observe and opening up to your own marvelous events and sharing them with others. And I think we're there.
Yep. Great job. So her book is Incandescence, Rising Above Darkness. There's a QR code on the bottom of the screen here. You can go to Amazon and just type in Claire Cooley, or if you're confident in your typing, Incandescence, Rising Above Darkness, and you'll find it. Or you can scan the QR code at the bottom of the screen. It's a wonderful book. And here's Serena Catania, co-founder of Sundance Film Festival's quote, "Her positive spirit is an inspiration." And I couldn't agree more.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. And I'll see you on Thursday at noon. And until then, stay creative.